to stop my wedding with Nico Tang. His childhood sweetheart deliberately fell into the water. Little did she know her life jacket strap wasn't fastened properly, turning her fake fall into a real cry for help. Nico Tang pleaded with me humbly. Vera and I grew up together. I can't just watch her die. Ivy, I know you can swim. Please save Vera, and we'll both be grateful to you. Under the moral coercion of the crowd, I jumped into the sea to save someone. However, saving someone is entirely different from swimming. Vera's son out of fear grabbed me and desperately pulled, nearly dragging me underwater to drown. After being rescued, I suffered severe lung infections due to drowning and was confined to bed. Nico Tang took all the shares of my company, using the excuse that I was in poor health and needed rest. After he took control of the company, he asked me for a divorce, and in the blink of an eye, he was off, living happily with Vera's son. I was so furious I could have coughed up blood and died. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Vera's son flailing in the cedar, while Nico Tang was already clinging to the railing, about to jump. I quietly took 2 steps back. In this lifetime, he'll have to save his own childhood sweetheart by himself. Someone's fallen into the water. Quick, save them. Help. Nico, save me. Glug glug. The surroundings were chaotic, disorderly. Footsteps, cries for help, and clamoring voices bringing me back to my senses. I looked down in bewilderment, only to see myself wearing a white wedding dress. This dress was all too familiar. It was the one I had custom-made abroad for my wedding to Nico Tang. I had actually been reborn on the day of my wedding to Nico Tang. I suddenly raised my head, staring at the all-too-familiar scene. Before me, Vera's son struggled desperately in the seawater. The life jacket that had been on her was now floating just out of reach, drifting farther away with each of her frantic movements. Meanwhile, Nico Tang, upon hearing Vera's son's cries for help, immediately abandoned me, the bride, and rushed to the deck of the cruise ship, stepping onto the railing as if ready to jump. I had followed closely behind Nico Tang, and seeing the scene immediately, reached out to stop him. I knew Nico Tang not only couldn't swim, but also had a fear of water. He nearly drowned in a river as a child, and it said that Vera's son called for adults to save him, which is why he holds a special feeling for Vera's son. Yet Nico Tang still chose to hold the wedding on a cruise ship. I later found out that the cruise wedding was Vera's son's idea. Even the drowning incident was premeditated by Vera's son. Because Nico Tang's mother disliked Vera's son, she firmly opposed their relationship. Nico Tang went on hunger strikes and even attempted suicide. But in the end, he couldn't defy his mother and was forced to go on a blind date with me. Though he claimed to love me, in his heart, his deepest affections still belonged to Vera's son. Vera's son was also unwilling to give up on Nico Tang to sabotage our wedding. She went to great lengths, even risking her own safety. She wanted to prove her place in Nico Tang's heart, making me back off and take the initiative to break up. What a touching pair of lovers they are. If only I weren't stuck in the middle like a fool, I would have blessed them, too. But later, Nico Tang took a liking to the company in my hands, and seeing how frail I was, he adjusted his strategy. Vera's son choked on another mouthful of water. The harder she struggled, the more cedar flooded her nose and mouth. She never expected that her life jacket wasn't properly fastened. I lowered my head with a cold smile and took a few more steps back. In this lifetime, not only will I not jump in to save anyone, but I'll also make them suffer the consequences of their own actions. Nico Tang had already climbed over the railing, but just as he was about to jump, he suddenly stopped. He watched the undulating sea surface, beads of sweat instantly forming at his temples and cascading down his cheeks. He began to gasp for air, leaning his body slightly against the railing before turning around in confusion. When Nico Tang noticed me standing right behind him, his eyes lit up. Ivy, pull me up first. I saw his whole body trembling, so he was still afraid after all. I had thought true love could conquer all difficulties in the world. Ivy, I remember you can swim, please. Before Nico Tang could start guilt-tripping me, I loudly cut him off. Nico Tang, I know you two are childhood sweethearts growing up together. I also No, you couldn't bear to watch her drown, but the one who's supposed to marry you is me. You can't even swim, yet you jump in for her. Nico Tang, have you ever considered how I feel?
How
could you do this to me? I sounded somewhat hysterical, and Nico Tang's words were all drowned out by my screams as I paused to catch my breath. Vera Sun's mother came limping up. She was the nanny for the Tang family, having lost her husband early in life, and with a lame leg, she had been idling away her days at the Tang household with Vera Sun. She had always hoped her daughter could marry Nico Tang whenever I visited the Tang family. She never missed a chance to play tricks to embarrass me. At this moment, Mrs. Sun couldn't spare the effort to mock me anymore.
She
pleaded with Nico Tang. Nico, I'm begging you. She's my only daughter.
For
the sake of her saving you when you were young, won't you pull her out?
The
guests also gathered around, chattering and urging Nico Tang to jump in and save the person, just like they urged me in my past life. Upon hearing that the drowning person had once saved Nico Tang, they took the moral high ground even more, making sarcastic remarks from the sidelines. I also feigned a look of anxiety, pretending to be at a loss for what to do. Nico Tang glanced at Vera Sun in the water with only half of her head still above the surface. I noticed that someone had already called the crew, preparing to go into the sea for a rescue. This won't do. I sighed and turned to the guests, saying, "Stop pressuring Nico Tang. He's not someone who fears death. Although the person who fell into the water once saved his life, he shouldn't risk his own life just because of past gratitude."
I
watched Vera Sun's mother adding fuel to the fire again. "Annie, don't make it hard for Nico Tang either. After all, he's a young master from a wealthy
family.
In his eyes, your only precious daughter is nothing more than the child of a nanny." A flash of anger and humiliation crossed Mrs. Sun's eyes. Then her knees weakened and she knelt down before Nico Tang. Nico Tang couldn't handle it anymore.
At the
moment when Vera's son could no longer struggle and slowly sank, Nico Tang gritted his teeth fiercely and turned to climb back from the outside of the railing. Yes, climb back. He simply didn't have the courage to jump in and save her. Trembling, he clutched the railing to pull himself up, his lips quivering as he muttered, "It's not that. I don't want to save them. I really
can't swim.
If I jump in, I'll die." So, since he wouldn't save anyone himself, he had to force someone else to do it. He cared about Vera Sun's life. He cared about his own life.
But mine
didn't matter at all. At that moment, I had only one thought. He had to go down
there.
He had to answer for what he did to the past me. I shouted loudly, "Nico Tang, come up quickly. You're afraid of
water."
But I'm not. I'll go down and save her right now." But unlike in my past life, instead of removing the hem of my wedding dress, I took off the crown on my head and, using the dress as cover, charged at Nico Tang. The sharpest part of the crown pierced Nico Tang's hand between the thumb and forefinger. He suddenly cried out in pain, and his already loosely held hands jerked back, causing his whole body to fall backward into the sea.
But my
wedding dress got tangled on the railing, preventing me from climbing over. "Nico Tang, don't go down."
I
stretched my hand desperately but couldn't reach anything. Nico Tang flailed his legs in midair in panic, then landed with uncanny precision right on Vera Sun's head. A huge wave appeared on the sea surface, and the corners of my mouth rose fiercely like the tide, then quickly tightened again. By now, the ship's lifeguards had already lowered the rescue boat. Under the expectant gazes of me and the crowd, they quickly retrieved both individuals who had fallen into the water. Although the cruise ship was equipped with a medical room, the doctor had taken leave on the day of departure. This was also the reason I hadn't received timely treatment in my previous life. This life, it's just their bad luck. I knelt in disarray beside Nico Tang, crying my heart out. "I know you liked her, but we were about to get married. How could you be willing to abandon me for her? Nico Tang, if you didn't want to be with me, you could have told me. I wouldn't have stopped you too. Why did you have to choose to die together at the wedding?" The guests who had just urged Nico Tang to save others now remained silent. They all pricked up their ears, listening intently to the gossip, and even the Lifeguard performing CPR on Nico Tang. Pause the compressions for 2 seconds. After basic first aid. Both were out of immediate danger but remained unconscious. Vera's son's condition was
Better than Nico Tang's, as she had
specifically learned underwater breathing techniques before planning her fall into the water. Nico Tang had it really bad. He was the one who truly accidentally fell into the water. Nico Tang was already afraid of water.
The
moment he plunged into the sea, his mouth was wide open and he lost consciousness instantly. When Cedar flooded his mouth and nose, he was jolted awake only to choke and pass out. Again, the amount of water the lifeguard
pumped out of him could have filled a
bathtub. Watching him vomit up bloody water, I smugly wiped my nose with my wedding veil. As the groom, Nico Tang's current condition naturally put the wedding on hold. The cruise ship was now in international waters, leaving no option but to wait for helicopter rescue. At this moment, I genuinely found myself praying for Nico Tang.
If
he were to die just like that, it would be far too easy for him. The physical suffering, betrayal, and humiliation I endured in my past life, he must experience every bit of it in this lifetime. I knelt at the entrance of the infirmary for 2 hours, my wedding dress dragging behind me and my hair disheveled, moving everyone with the depth of my emotions. Finally, the helicopter arrived and transported both of them to the hospital. That same afternoon, I rushed to the emergency room with my bridesmaids in tow. Vera's son had passed the critical stage but hadn't yet regained consciousness.
It
seemed Nico Tang had hit her pretty
hard.
In my previous life at this time, I had already thrown myself into Nico Tang's arms, sobbing softly. It's all my fault. I felt so upset about your marriage that I just wanted to go to the deck to get some fresh air.
Nico Tang
then held her tightly, whispering comfortingly. It was Ivy Ju who insisted on jumping. She was being reckless. It's no one else's fault. This lifetime, it's me standing outside while Nico Tang is still in critical condition. Nico Tang's mother rushed towards me as soon as she saw me, ready to slap me if it weren't for you egging
my son on.
Why would he want to have a wedding on a cruise ship? He's been afraid of water since he was a child. It's all your fault. Otherwise, my son definitely wouldn't have ended up like
this.
How ridiculous. It was clearly her own son's decision. Yet, when something goes wrong, she has to blame someone else. Mrs. Tang's hand was raised high, but before it could reach me, it was stopped by 4 bridesmaids. They were all hostesses I paid for, and to avoid Nico Tang's brothers causing trouble with the bridesmaids, I didn't dare let my own close friends participate. At this moment, the 4 hostesses unexpectedly played their part. They all pointed out how Nico Tang ignored the wedding and insisted on jumping into the sea to save
someone.
Don't even talk about heroism. Rumor has it the woman in the water was the groom's childhood sweetheart. The way they look at each other is just not innocent. Their eyes are practically tangled up. Instead of blaming your own son for abandoning the wedding and jumping into the sea, you're pointing fingers at the innocent bride.
Sounds
like a guilty conscience to me. I have footage from the ship. Don't even think about framing an innocent person. Of course, there were people recording the wedding, but they were all behind me. What they captured was Nico Tang rushing onto the deck, climbing over the ship's railing, and making as if to jump.
Then
they turned the camera toward Vera's son, struggling in the water, completely missing my subtle actions. After watching the footage, Nico Tang's parents turned pale. Tang's mother clenched her teeth, unwilling to give up, and stubbornly pointed at the recording,
accusing me.
You were right behind Nico. Why didn't you stop him? You could have easily reached out and grabbed him.
I
covered my face, putting on a sorrowful and haggard expression, as if utterly heartbroken, sobbing without answering. The 2 young women comforted me from either side, while the other 2 stepped forward and began scolding Tang's mother. Like mother, like son, the son gets involved with other women, and the mother just shifts the blame. Look at your son's resolute face. Who would dare pull him back? And if someone did, would you then accuse them of pushing him into the water?
Exactly.
Are you saying your son's change of heart is also the bride's fault? Do you also want to claim it's because the bride couldn't keep your son's heart? The little wretch who caused your son to fall into the water is lying right next door. Why don't you go slap her instead? Mrs. Tang was too confident, insisting on taking on all four of them alone, and nearly fainted from anger. In the end, a nurse came out and strictly forbade everyone from making noise in the hospital. I secretly glanced at Aunt Tang clutching her chest, feeling secretly pleased. This old hag was her son's accomplice in my past life. She often came under the pretense of visiting the sick to humiliate me. Back then I was already bedridden, barely able to get up.
She
Stood by my bed with her hands on her hips, cursing me as a hen that couldn't lay eggs, saying I was dying from illness and still dragging her son down. In the end, she even took out a photo of Nico Tang and Vera's son to provoke me. She laughed arrogantly. Look how perfect Vera is for our Nico. It didn't take long after they got together for Vera to get pregnant. What a blessed child.
She
Forgot that it was she who had vehemently opposed Nico Tang and Vera's son being together in the first place. She looked down on Vera's son's mother for being a nanny, thinking Vera's son was also inferior.
Now it's the time she
Detests Vera's son the most. Yet her only son nearly lost his life for Vera's son.
I
Didn't stay at the hospital for long before being surrounded by four young ladies to change clothes after assessing the combat skills of the four young ladies. I arranged a hotel for them and planned to continue hiring them for another 3 months. That evening I opened a short video platform, edited the wedding footage, and posted it online, especially the part where I knelt outside the medical room. The angle was captured perfectly, and everyone who saw it said I looked utterly shattered.
I
Even bought myself a trending hashtag, then turned off my phone and slept soundly. I didn't wake up until noon the next day. I applied a sickly makeup look, grabbed the chicken soup delivered by a takeout guy, and headed back to the hospital with 4 young women.
I
Arrived just in time. Nico Tang had woken up half an hour ago. As for Vera's son, it said she woke up around midnight yesterday. I knocked on the door of Nico Tang's hospital room and, without waiting for a response, led the girls in with a flurry of movement. In the VIP ward, Nico Tang was alone. Nico Tang lay on the bed, his eyes half open, staring fixedly at the ceiling. He wore an oxygen mask, his bare chest covered with ECG monitoring devices, a blood pressure cuff wrapped around his left arm, and 4 needle inserted into the back of his right hand, and antithrombosis devices strapped to both legs. Most importantly, he was also hooked up to a urine bag. The sorrow I had been steeling myself for nearly faltered when I noticed the bubbles rising in the urine bag. I quickly lowered my head, covered my face, and my shoulders began to tremble. I had to cover my face.
I
Couldn't let Nico Tang see my joy just
yet.
The young ladies quickly gathered around to console and comfort me, completely ignoring Nico Tang lying
There.
Nico Tang heard the noise and turned his head with difficulty.
The
moment he saw me, his eyes were filled with rage. He yanked off the oxygen mask from his face, so agitated that he tried to sit up, but he was too weak.
The
moment he moved, he began coughing violently, his face flushing crimson from the force of it. After gasping for breath for what felt like an eternity, he finally managed to rasp out a hoarse accusation. Ivy Ju, why didn't you stop me this time?
You were supposed to
Stop me and jump into the sea yourself. You even stabbed my hand. You deliberately made me fall into the water. Nico Tang's eyes were bloodshot as he shakily raised his injured left
hand.
His words made my heart tighten. Could it be that Nico Tang has also been reborn? I bit the tip of my tongue hard, the pain surging through me. When I looked up again, tears were streaming down my face. Nico Tang, what are you talking about? If you hadn't jumped in first, I would have already gone into the water to save them. It wasn't me who injured your hand either. Think again. Didn't you hurt yourself by bumping into the railing? I can't remember. Probably a side effect from being in the water too
long.
Nico Tang stared into my eyes as if trying to see right through me. He
Asked
word by word, Ivy, you didn't stop me.
Is it because you've also been
reborn? You hate me for abandoning you. In our past life. So, in this one, you want my life. The four girls standing nearby exchanged bewildered glances.
All.
Thinking Nico Tang must have choked on water and gone mad. Only I understood what he was talking about. I met his gaze with clear, bright eyes, not a trace of guilt in them. I wanted him
Dead.
wanted it with such righteous conviction. Why should I feel guilty?
My
Resolute expression was as if I were declaring my intent to join the party.
I
Don't understand what you're talking about. Nico Tang coughed again, shaking his head as if possessed. That's not
right.
clearly you were supposed to jump into the water to save Vera, then contract a lung disease and I take care
Of you.
You'd be so moved that you'd hand over your entire company to me. Then, when you were on the verge of death, I'd dump you, marry Vera, and start a family. Yes, that's exactly what he did in my past life. Everyone said he never abandoned me and told me to be grateful, unaware that his real goal was the company my parents left me. I loved him, trusted him, and in the end I lost both my love and my fortune, even my
Life.
as for Nico Tang, he gained both fame and fortune, married the woman he loved, and lived a happy, fulfilling life.
Why?
Nico Tang didn't see the ferocious hatred in my eyes. He placed his hand on his head and muttered to himself, how could I jump in to save someone? Would I end up like Ivy Ju in her past life, suffering from an illness that made life worse than death?
No, I don't want that.
I don't want it.
It's
Fine, Ivy Ju. Then how am I supposed to take over her company? How am I supposed to spend her money and live happily ever after with Vera? I regret it. Why didn't I reincarnate sooner? If I had, I would have pushed Ivy Ju into the water right
away.
The hatred nearly pierced through my heart. My fists clenched tightly.
And
Just as I was about to lose control, the door to the hospital room was pushed open. Vera's son entered the hospital room in a wheelchair. My gaze lingered on her
face.
From her left eyelid to the corner of her mouth, there was an extremely deep scar. Instantly, I thought of the crown that had stabbed Nico Tang.
He
Fell into the water while clutching that crown, and it landed on Vera's son's head, even managing to scratch her face. A 50,000 yuan crown worth every penny. Noticing my gaze, Vera's son's face twisted in fury, as if she were about to rush at me and strangle me the next
second.
Unfortunately, she didn't even have the strength to lift herself up and could only will her chair over to throw herself onto Nico Tang and start crying.
Woo.
Nico, are you okay? Vera was so scared. Vera thought she'd never see you again. The frail Nico Tang couldn't withstand Vera's son's forceful embrace. Like a dying fish, he suddenly bent over and began coughing, causing bubbles to reappear in the urine bag. Seeing those bubbles, my anger suddenly dissipated, as if my memory glands had instantly
Cleared.
After all, in this lifetime, the one living a fate worse than death isn't me. The furious young ladies wanted to step forward and teach that scumbag and that shameless woman a lesson, but I stopped them. No rush. Their retribution is yet to come. Vera. Sun clung to Nico Tang's arm, still trying to make her presence felt. Nico, you're so good to me. If you hadn't jumped in without hesitation, I might have drowned. She turned her head to look at me defiantly. Sister Ju, you won't blame me for ruining the wedding you so carefully planned, will you? It's all because of the years of feelings between me and Nico. I smiled and pointed at Nico Tang's arm, which Vera's son was pressing so tightly that the blood had started to flow backward, turning the four-tube crimson. Of course
Not.
how could I blame you? After I finished speaking, I pulled the girls to stand further away. Only then did Vera's son notice, crying while apologizing and clumsily rubbing Nico Tang's arm. Watching Nico Tang scream in pain and the crooked needle, I hummed a tune and pressed the emergency call button. From the doctor, I obtained Nico Tang's medical report. As expected, it's a lung infection, but compared to my past self, his condition is more severe, accompanied by pulmonary hemorrhage, cerebral hypoxia, and so on. In my past life, despite all their provocations, I still managed to survive for 5 years.
I
Wonder how long Nico Tang can hold on. This time, Half an hour later, I returned to the ward and explained Nika Tang's condition to him in detail. The doctor said that due to shock, your brain has been damaged, which may affect your intelligence in the future and your lungs. Forget about strenuous exercise. You might even become bedridden, a complete invalid.
I
Emphasized the word useless with particular weight. Nika Tang couldn't take it anymore. He clutched his head in disbelief, fingers digging into his hair, and slowly pulling downward, letting out a pained roar. I handed the report to Mother Tang, who had just arrived, and she flew into a rage. This time, she didn't lash out at me, but instead slapped Vera's son, who was cowering in the corner. It's all because of you that my son ended up like this.
damn it.
Why didn't you drown? Vera's son covered her face, silently crying, but her eyes were fixed on the unconscious Nika Tang, still hoping he would stand up for her. The four girls and I stood by, watching the drama unfold with them
Around. Even if Nico's mom wanted to
take her anger out on me, she'd have to think twice. Nika Tang had long lost any tenderness for the fairest sex at this moment. He was immersed in his own world, completely oblivious to Vera's son's plaintive gaze. No, it shouldn't be like
this
it must be a dream, just a dream. Clearly, it wasn't supposed to be this
way.
Suddenly, Nika Tang lowered his hands and struggled to lift his head, gazing at me with deep affection. Ivy, we're already married.
Could you sell
The company and use the money to treat my illness? Nika Tang's parents run a chain of supermarkets. In recent years, affected by online shopping platforms, their profits have been declining
steadily?
However, they can still afford the money for his treatment.
Despite
Being so ill, he still hasn't forgotten to cover my company. The ward instantly fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Even Mrs. Tang seemed stunned for a moment. Nika Tang, afraid I might refuse, quickly made me a
promise.
once I recover, I promise to arrange a grand wedding again, making you the happiest woman in the world.
Of
Course, once I'm better, I'll repay you the money from selling the company, principal and interest included, if not for the experiences of my past life.
I
Might have been genuinely moved by his sincerity. I almost couldn't hold it in and nearly burst out laughing. Then I pretended to be troubled and said, but how can I feel at ease dealing with company matters when you're in this state? As your wife, I should be by your side. Mother Tang rolled her eyes and put on a warm smile. Ivy, why would you need to personally handle such menial tasks? She glared viciously at Vera's son, who was still in tears. Some people will always have to pay the price for what they've done. I couldn't agree more with that statement. Mother Tang immediately arranged for Vera's son to take care of Nika Tang in the hospital room, completely disregarding the fact that Vera's son hadn't fully recovered either. She said she had originally planned to fire Vera's son's mother, and this time would be their chance to redeem themselves. Of course, Vera's son was unwilling. The four young women following me immediately patted their chests, saying they were willing to stay and take care of Nika Tang. Seeing the four beautiful and tall women, Vera's son grew anxious. Nico must be taken care of by me personally. My mom is a nanny, and I've known how to care for others since childhood. No one else needs to interfere. I pretended to sigh in distress and reluctantly agreed to the arrangement. Thus began Vera's son's painful career as a caregiver to stay updated on their situation in real time. I even hired a young man who had some connections at the hospital and a passion for photography. Every day the young man would send me several video clips. In the first few days, Vera's son was overjoyed. She couldn't wait to be alone with Nika Tang to nurture their relationship. But Nika Tang was sickly and covered in medical equipment. Forget intimacy, even turning over required assistance. And Mrs. Tang clearly despised Vera's son. She was determined to punish the hussy who had seduced her son and didn't even bother hiring an additional caregiver. Every day, Vera's son not only has to feed and administer medicine but also stays up late to keep watch by the bed, and she has to clean and change clothes for Nika Tang, who is a germaphobe. What Vera's son finds most unbearable is that Nika Tang can't get out of bed, so she has to handle all his bathroom needs.
Although Vera Sun is the
daughter of a nanny, she grew up alongside Nico Tang and apart from enduring a few sarcastic remarks has never had to do dirty or exhausting
work.
In just a few days, she visibly lost weight. She certainly didn't dare to voice any objections to Auntie Tang. So, she could only complain to Nico
Tang,
not wanting to explicitly say she was unwilling to take care of Nico Tang. Vera Sun would instead complain about her hands feeling rough today or clutch her waist while coughing incessantly the next day. Nico Tang wasn't a fool.
He
Knew exactly what Vera Sun wanted.
but
The look in his eyes when he gazed at Vera Sun grew increasingly inscrutable, until one day after Vera Sun finished changing Nico Tang's socks, she suddenly erupted. She threw the dirty socks on the ground, stomped on them frantically with her feet, and then burst into loud
sobs.
"They're so dirty and smelly.
Why?
Should I be the one to deal with them? It's not like I forced you to jump into the sea to save me. Why is everyone blaming me?" She lashed out without thinking. "I was soaked in the sea for so long and I didn't end up like you, just choking on a few mouthfuls of water and then lying in bed unable to move.
How?
Utterly useless." Nico Tang, already feeling miserable all over, finally snapped. He grabbed a fruit knife from the table and hurled it at Vera Sunday.
A
New wound appeared on Vera Sun's face. She covered her face and screamed in shock, attracting the attention of doctors and nurses. I don't know how the matter was eventually resolved, but in videos from a few days later, they seem to have reconciled. However, I noticed that in some clips, Nico Tang's gaze at Vera Sun was sinister and particularly chilling. Aunt Tang hired another caregiver for Nico Tang, so Vera Sun no longer had to personally handle those filthy tasks. I stopped paying attention to them and began reorganizing my own company. After my parents passed away, unexpectedly, I hadn't been very diligent in managing the company before marrying Nico Tang. He had been constantly brainwashing me, urging me to stop being in the public eye and return to domestic life. In my previous life, I didn't resist either, and after my health deteriorated, I even handed over all management rights to Nico Tang. In this life, I won't be foolish anymore. This company is the very foundation of my existence. I tried hard to recall who immediately betrayed me back when I fell ill. These are the primary targets I need to eliminate. I was afraid that if Nico Tang improved even slightly, he would realize I had no intention of selling the company and then find some way to strike against me. After all, he has lived 2 lifetimes. The money he swindled from me in my past life allowed him to live comfortably and carefree. How could he possibly give that up now? I toughened up and thoroughly cleaned house within the company I spoke with for young women, all from families that favored sons over daughters. They were sent out to work before even graduating, and with their low education levels, they couldn't find jobs that didn't involve entertaining clients. They all wanted to follow me, so I arranged positions for them in the company too. In the PR department, 2 in the sales department. Unexpectedly, they actually managed to secure several deals for me. They're happy. I'm happy.
It's a
win-win. Nico Tang calls me every day to inquire about my company's affairs.
I
Don't know if it's because he's feeling unwell, but he's even more eager to get his hands on my money when I'm unsure
about a certain executive in the
company. I also subtly probe him for information. Nico Tang wasn't without suspicion. He would suddenly mention events from past lives that never happened in this lifetime. I just
pretended not to understand, and if I
really couldn't remember, I'd make up an excuse or change the subject. However, even if I occasionally slip up, Nico Tang can't catch me. His mind really isn't sharp anymore. Often after questioning me, he forgets what he said. Sometimes I even have to remind him. We spent a month in this mutual probing. Nico Tang is about to be discharged from the hospital, and I'm personally driving to pick him up. I arrived more than an hour early and stood right outside his hospital room door.
I
cracked the door open slightly, but the 2 inside didn't seem to notice at all. Nico Tang looked sallow and emaciated, with dark circles under his eyes as if he'd aged 10 years. He kept coughing, then spat on the ground, wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth with his hand and cursed, saying the hospital was full of quacks. He used to be so refined and eloquent, but now it's as if he's become a completely different person. This is his true self. Vera's son sat by the bed close to Nico Tang, feeding him sliced apples.
Nico, don't.
Let Mom Tang scold me again. Okay.
The
Place where she hit me last time still
hurts.
Nico Tang glanced at the scars on Vera's son's face. Both marks were left by him. Even after a month of healing, the scars remained clearly visible. Nico Tang pushed her away with some disgust.
How dare you say that?
If it weren't for you, would I be this sick? Cough. Cough. A flicker of resentment flashed in Vera's son's eyes. I watched as she unsteadily helped Nico Tang up and walked to the bathroom. Nico Tang's scolding voice rang out. Damn it, you're just a housekeeper's daughter.
Can't
even take care of people properly. Didn't your mother teach you anything? Soon after, Vera's son's sobbing could be heard. I brought both Nico Tang and Vera's son back to the Tang family home. Nico Tang was being supported by Vera's son, as if they were the loving couple while I trailed behind them. As soon as we entered, Nico Tang was surrounded by several people. They are all Nico Tang's closest brothers, with two of them being witnesses to the cruise ship incident. Brother Tang, we've been wanting to visit you in the hospital for a while, but we've been a bit busy and couldn't find the time. Exactly. Now that you're discharged, we thought we should celebrate for you. Nico Tang forced a smile and hugged each of them in turn. Whether sincere or not, he put on an excellent show of camaraderie. As soon as Nico Tang sat down, he involuntarily started coughing, causing his close friends to frown. One who was sitting nearest even quickly left his seat, excusing himself to go to the restroom, and hurried away. Nico Tang covered his mouth, his whole body trembling. Whether from coughing or anger was unclear. After finally catching his breath, he weakly gestured for Vera's son to serve tea to everyone. They all clearly knew about the relationship between Nico Tang and Vera's son.
They call me sister-in-law
to my face, but in reality, they're all giving Vera's son meaningful glances.
I
play along with their act, smiling all the while. After all, I was the one who leaked Nico Tang's discharge time just so they'd all come over for a gathering. Spotting Vera's son in the kitchen,
I
deliberately pretended to be on a phone
call.
That's right. All his friends are here. I heard some of them come from families with businesses. Nico insisted I host them properly soon. My in-laws will be bringing their friends over.
Two.
Yes, just to introduce me to everyone. When I turned my head again, Vera's son was already gone. I smiled and returned to the living room where Vera's son was sitting next to Nico Tang, whispering in his ear. Nico Tang pushed Vera's son away when he saw me taking several deep breaths. His lingering symptoms were quite severe, either coughing or struggling to breathe. Ivy, I left my ID at the hospital, and I still need it.
Could you please help me get it back?
His eyes were evasive, but he insisted that I go retrieve it. I secretly recorded our conversation, then smiled and grabbed my bag to leave. Just as I reached the door, a food delivery guy arrived. I took a deliberate look. Seafood, grilled meat, fried skewers, and all sorts of foods that lung disease patients should avoid, along with several crates of alcohol, including beer, Bayou, and imported liquor. I smiled and returned to my villa. Then called the hospital to ask the nurses to help search for the lost ID documents. I quickly lay down for a short nap as things were likely to get lively that evening. 3 hours later, my phone started vibrating wildly. As soon as I answered the call, I was met with an overwhelming
cacophony.
Shouting, cursing, wailing, and the sound of things being smashed, all blending together, tearing at my eardrums. Aunt Tang's hoarse, desperate curses came through the receiver. Ivy, Jew, where the hell have you been?
Get to the hospital now. Nico Tang is dying.
I steadied my voice, feigning a mix of urgency and tears. What's going on? He was fine when I left. Without another word, Aunt Tang told me to hurry over and hung up the phone. This was my second time outside the emergency room. Vera's son knelt there with her hands clasped together as if in prayer or desperate pleading. Aunt Tang stood with her hands on her hips, her face filled with anger. Before she could even speak, I took the initiative to confront her. What on earth is going on? I was only gone for a short while and he got into trouble. What exactly are you trying to do? Does this family have to fall apart without me? Mom Tang was intimidated by my imposing manner and didn't dare to meet my eyes. To save face, she immediately shifted her target and kicked Vera's son, who was kneeling
There.
Who told you to order all that food and alcohol? You knew perfectly. Well, Nico hasn't fully recovered yet. Are you trying to kill him? Vera's son was kicked to the ground, revealing the bright red slap mark on her face. She retorted. But you and Uncle Tang were also there, and neither of you tried to stop Nico from drinking too much.
Aunt.
Tang went berserk again, grabbing Vera's son's hair and slamming her head against the wall. I quickly stepped back, afraid of getting blood on my clothes. Thanks to the doctor's efforts, Nico Tang was saved once again. This time, Tang's mother didn't want Vera's son near her son and asked me to stay and take care of him. I declined, citing the need to handle company assets as the reason.
I
Didn't return to the hospital until 2 weeks later when Nicket Tang called me. His voice was weak, like that of a dying old man. Ivy, why don't you come to see
me?
I gently explained to him that I was currently raising funds and preparing for an IPO. An IPO?
His voice suddenly
Rose sharply, straining his lungs, and he began coughing again. Whom? Why go public? Didn't you promise to sell the company to pay for my treatment? No, the doctor said my only option now is a lung transplant, but the technology isn't mature yet. It's very risky and requires a huge amount of money. Ivy, I'm begging you,
Please save me. Think
of how much I've loved you. I turned my head away and ran through the saddest moments of my life just to keep from laughing out loud. Love me. He actually said he loves me. With his memories from past lives fully intact, he knows perfectly well he never loved me. Yet he still tries to deceive me now. I told him the listed company could fetch a better price. Half convinced, he urged me to visit him at the hospital immediately to discuss the company matters face to face. Of course I'll go. The more he suffers, the more satisfaction I'll feel. I casually picked up a few forged documents that had been prepared long ago and entered the hospital room. The current Nico Tang looked as if he had been dried out by the wind, emaciated, sallow, and lifeless. There was no sign of Vera's son by his side anymore.
Nicket Tang was the
mastermind behind my tragic death in my past life, and Vera's son was his accomplice. Naturally, Nicket Tang must pay with his life. But I won't let Vera's son off the hook either. I first inquired about Nicket Tang's situation, his somewhat clouded eyes fixed intently on
me.
I gave his bony hand a couple of reassuring pats, then took out the documents and flipped through them page by page for him to see. A spark of life returned to Nico Tang's eyes. They're really willing to acquire it for $1 billion. Of course, I'm willing.
The
company's prospects are excellent, but the contract will only be signed after it goes public. I showed a troubled expression, but you urgently need the money. I'm afraid. Nicket Tang gritted his teeth. It's fine. Just go ahead and
do it.
As for money, my parents still have some. If it's really not enough, I'll have them sell the supermarket first. It's been losing money all these years anyway. I was waiting for him to
say exactly that.
He played the role of the deeply affectionate male lead with all his might, professing his undying love for me with grand vows. I played along, pretending he was the only one for me, even spouting nonsense like having 8 children together with a straight face. After all, it was all mutual deception. Who was more innocent than whom? Then I changed the subject and asked about Vera's son. Where's little sister Vera? You became like this for her sake. Even if mother-in-law doesn't treat her well, she should at least show some concern.
Nicket Tang
remained silent. I knew the reason. Of course, a week ago, Vera's son and Nicket Tang had a huge argument. Vera's son was planning to sue Nicket Tang for intentional harm. The reason was that the Tang family wanted to fire Vera's son's mother. In the video, Vera's son caused a scene in the hospital room. You saved me before, and now I've saved you. We're even. But why did you fire my mom?
She's
old, has trouble walking, and won't easily find another job. Are you trying to drive us mother and daughter to our deaths? I tucked Nico Tang's blanket in. You used to treat her so well. Even bought her luxury gifts. Who would have thought she'd disappear when you got this sick and needed money? Anyone with a bit of common sense would know you can't drink, yet she still bought so
Much.
Wasn't it just to humiliate you in front of your friends, or worse if you were to die? My words made Nico Tang clench his fists tightly.
Seeing that my
Goal was achieved, I excused myself by saying I had work at the company and left, just causing minor trouble for Nicket Tang wasn't enough. Of course, I wrote an anonymous complaint letter
reporting that Nicket Tang's family
supermarket was selling expired food and had fire safety hazards. Soon the food safety and fire departments penalized the supermarket, ordering it to suspend operations for rectification.
just as
They were about to reopen after addressing the issues. I reported the supermarket for tax evasion.
I had
Intended to merely annoy the Tang family, but unexpectedly they were also taking kickbacks and issuing fake invoices with multiple offenses.
combined.
Mr. Tang, as the legal representative, was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and the supermarket's business license was revoked. After a series of fines, Nicket Tang was moved from the VIP ward to a general ward. He started calling me frequently, hoping I would cover his medical expenses. I grew tired of making excuses, so when he called again, I burst into tears. I told him I had fallen victim to an investment scam and begged Nicket Tang to lend me his family's villa property deed as collateral for a loan. Once I get through this tough time, I'll pay you back double. Okay, Nico Tang. Nicket
Tang.
The call was ruthlessly ended by Nicket Tang. I tossed my phone aside and continued enjoying the massages and treats from the ladies. The photographer, loving guys, sent me another video. Nico Tang went to see Vera's son and asked Vera, son, for money. If you don't give me the money, return all the things I gave you
Before.
Oh, and that apartment I bought for you too. I can't stand the 4-person ward. I need a private room to recover. Those people snore and grind their teeth. There was no way Vera's son would give up what she had already gotten her hands on. She pushed Nicket Tang's wheelchair out the door. I haven't even sued you in court for slashing my face with a knife yet. How dare you ask me for money? My plastic surgery medical bills still cost over $100,000. Besides, the things you gave me are mine.
Now.
What right do you have to take them back?
Don't look at Nico Tang being a
man, but because he's seriously ill. He's no match for Vera's son at all.
In
just 2 moves, he was pushed out the door by Vera's son and even got slapped. Get out. Get out, or I'll call the
police.
Look, this is their supposedly unbreakable love.
Soon I received a
call from Mother Tang, my mother-in-law, whose heart is smaller than a needle's. I, now completely deflated. She wanted me, as the legal wife, to sue Vera's son and reclaim the house. That's the marital property between you and Nico. As long as you file a lawsuit, that underscore won't stand a chance.
Nicket Tang
was also by his mother's side.
He took
the phone, his voice sounding somewhat
defeated.
It was my blindness. I never expected her to be this kind of person. Ivy, help me get the house back, and from now on, I'll live only for you. Turns out that house was a small duplex Nico Tang bought specifically to appease Vera's son after we got our marriage certificate, costing over $5 million. What's mine, I naturally won't let anyone take advantage of. The day Vera's son received the court summons, she deliberately called to curse me out.
I
think there's a reason why she didn't
study well.
So I quickly gave her a crash course on legal knowledge and kindly suggested she consult a lawyer as soon as possible. When I got off work, I saw Vera's son blocking the company entrance, and she had brought her mother along. As soon as her mother saw me, she immediately knelt down, wailing loudly, drawing a crowd of onlookers. Please, Miss Ju, have mercy on us. My daughter had nothing to do with your marriage to Mr. Tang. Don't push us to our deaths.
I
beg you. Many people raised their
phones.
Vera's son made up her mind to use public opinion to cyberbully me.
She
and her mother kept kowtowing to me nonstop, and even as they were being taken away by the police, they were still recounting their tragic life story. and how I had bullied her. Public opinion indeed escalated as she had hoped. But when the angry netizens rushed to my Weibo, they discovered all those videos I had posted before.
On our
Wedding day, my groom jumped into the sea to save her while I knelt outside the medical room praying. There were also videos of Nikit Tang lying in the hospital bed, Vera's son kissing his cheek and feeding him fruit. There was even footage from the day Nikit Tang was discharged from the hospital. He asked me to fetch his documents from the hospital while he went drinking with his brother's arm with Vera's son. Finally, there is a recording. My dear mother-in-law and my loyal husband let me as the legal wife sue Vera's son to reclaim that house. Public opinion has completely turned in my favor with everyone condemning Vera's son for being a thief crying stop thief. It's really
disgusting.
how dare she cause a scene at that young lady's company. If it were me, I wouldn't even dare to step outside without wrapping myself in a pound of
Cling film.
It was the groom who had an affair with that woman from the very beginning. So, was the drowning incident even real? Will the young lady get a
Divorce or not?
If you ignore me, I'll drive a bulldozer to scoop her away.
I
Thought the other woman would be stunning, but with this face that could revitalize the nation through technology.
I can't see what the man saw.
In her. Is no one going to call out this man? He's had his fun with the woman, and now he wants to take back the gifts he gave her. Vera's son is now facing backlash from public opinion. Someone found out where she lives and dumped dead rats and pigeons at her doorstep. Her door was also vandalized with red paint scrolled with the words "die" in large letters. Whenever she or her mother steps outside, they are subjected to pointing and whispering. Some even threatened to run them over with a car. Vera's son quickly went live to clarify. Still trying to win sympathy, she brought out childhood photos of herself and Nico Tang, recounting their youthful, ambiguous past. In the end, not only did she fail to save herself, but she also dragged Nico Tang down with her. So, the man is the real culprit, wanting it all. What a piece of trash. Nico Tang couldn't stay in the hospital any longer as netizens frequently barged in to take photos of him and ask about his current feelings. Even when the inpatient ward was placed under strict security, some bold individuals still attempted to climb the walls. The other patients in the same room couldn't bear it anymore and began to blame Nikit
Tang.
Nikit Tang was persuaded to leave and had no choice but to be discharged and return home. After several rounds of turmoil, his health deteriorated. Further, he called and asked me to withdraw the lawsuit, saying, "I never expected Vera's son to make such a fuss. She used to be so gentle and lovely. This isn't like her at all. Ivy Jew, what on earth did you do to push Vera to this point?"
His mind seemed to be in
complete disarray. One moment she was talking about her past life, the next, she was lamenting the miseries of this
one.
I didn't hang up the phone, just set it aside and went about my own business. An hour later, when I picked up the phone again, I could hear Nico Tang sobbing to herself on the other
And
It shouldn't be like this.
where
Did it all go wrong? Cough, asterisk. Asterisk, cough, asterisk. How could I possibly withdraw the lawsuit? The court proceeded as scheduled and ruled that Vera's son must return the property, along with everything Nico Tang bought for her after we got married. Vera's son caused a scene in court and even injured a bafe, resulting in a 15-day detention. I immediately had all of Vera's son's and her mother's belongings thrown out of the house and listed the property for sale the same day. By the time Vera's son gets out in 15 days, the house will have long since changed hands. She ran to the Tang family again, planning to play the victim card by leveraging her past relationship with Nico Tang.
But as soon as she finished
her emotional plea, Nico Tang's eyes rolled back and he fainted. After a hospital examination, they recommended that Mrs. Tang transfer him to a higher-level hospital. I secretly went to see the doctor, but I didn't expect her to recognize me. Your husband is that idiot who jumped into the sea to save his mistress. Oh no, I mean my condolences. She said Nico Tang has at most 3 months left to live. Of course, I didn't hide the truth and told Mrs. Tang everything, as it was amidst Mother Tang's agonizing. So I promised to raise the money immediately and do everything possible To save Nico Tang. I sighed. Who knows what Vera's son came to say to Nico that it actually made him faint from anger. Mother Tang wiped away her tears. Her face dark and terrifying, but she said nothing more. The next morning I received a call from the police. I rushed to the police station only to learn that last night Aunt Tang had gone to Vera's son with a knife and chopped off both her feet. Even Vera's son's mother had one of her arms
Severed. When I went to visit my
mother-in-law, she was acting somewhat deranged, constantly muttering, "You shameless bitch, fooling around with my husband and even teaching your daughter to seduce my son. You old underscore your daughter is a little underscore underscore." After evaluation, it was confirmed that my mother-in-law had indeed gone insane. I paid to have her admitted to a mental hospital, then entrusted a lawyer to inform my father-in-law in prison. We're family. How could we keep secrets from each other? The prison authorities said that my father-in-law was provoked and got into a fight with his cellmate due to his violent behavior. His sentence might be extended after handling other matters. I finally arrived at Niket Tang's hospital room. Niket Tang's eyes had completely clouded over. He stared at me for a long time before seemingly recognizing who I was. He smiled, but tears welled up in his eyes. "Ivy, please, forgive me. I know I was wrong. I was blinded. Vera's son actually said I was dying and asked me to leave all my inheritance to her. I'm such a scoundrel. I abandoned you for her. You trusted me so much, cared for me with all your heart. How could I? How could I? Asterisk cough, asterisk, asterisk. Cough, asterisk." I smiled, leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Nico Tang, do you believe in reincarnation?
take a guess.
Why do you think your life has been so miserable this time around?" He was dazed for a moment, then his eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at me. "You said you hadn't been reborn. You lied to me." I laughed heartily, recounting to him one by one the fates of his parents and Vera's son. "If it weren't for your mother going mad, I wouldn't have known that Vera's son's mother was your father's mistress. To actually let the mistress live in your own home for 20 years, such magnanimity is truly beyond me. I just wonder, though, if Vera's son shares any blood relation with you." Niket Tang weakly raised his hand, trying to grab me, but I dodged.
Why?
"I've already admitted my mistake. Why can't you forgive me? Why did you let me end up like this? Didn't you love
Me?
I promise from now on I'll only love you, and we'll live well together. Just spend the money to cure me." Cough, cough. I shrugged my shoulders.
Too late. Nico Tang.
Too late. The doctors have already issued a critical condition notice.
You've only got a few days left.
Make the most of them. I originally wanted Vera's son to come see you one last time at the hospital, but she cursed so harshly. No amount of persuasion could bring her. Your childhood sweetheart's romantic love was truly fragile. Are you even more regretful now?
Good. You should be.
Nico Tang exerted force in an attempt to get up, only to collapse heavily back onto
the bed.
The equipment emitted a sharp, piercing alarm. By the time the medical staff rushed in, I had already slowly retreated from the ward. After several hours of resuscitation efforts, the doctor told me to accept my grief. Accept what grief? With a beaming smile, I flushed Nico Tang's ashes down the
drain.
The next day, I boarded a yacht with the 4 lovely ladies who had once been my bridesmaids. Clear sky, blazing sun, endless sea. A brand new life begins here.